You need to be able to play and solo over chord changes if you want to play jazz. It's a skill that you need, it's a part of the style, and in the beginning it can be really difficult to build that skill and get started playing like this. In this video I'm going to go over 5 levels of exercises that are going to help you test how far you are, but also really build your abilities. They're of course in levels, so it starts easy and then it gets more and more complicated, and they're really going to test your fretboard knowledge, how well you know the chords, and of course your ability to improvise freely and create strong melodies. I'm curious how far you get. I don't know that many people who can actually do all 5 levels. And of course, if you've never tried these exercises before, then it's maybe not the kind of thing that you can do right away. But you can also just watch a level, pause the video, and then see how far you get, and let me know in the comments. And of course, if you have suggestions for other exercises that you think are really helpful, or if you think one of the exercises doesn't work at all, then let me know about that as well. My name is Larsen. Learn jazz, make music. To keep it a bit short, I'm gonna cover this just using a turnaround in C major, so C major 7 to A7 altered, to D minor, to G7 altered. A lot of what these exercises are really about is taking some fairly basic skills that you of course anyway need, and then getting them to a really high level. I think when I practice, I actually spend most of my time working on some basic stuff, but the way that I can apply them means that I can do some much more complicated things. And I think also, especially if you look at the last level of these exercises in this video, that's a goal that we all want to work towards. That's really where we all want to be and what we want to be able to do. The first level is improvising in half notes. So it's fairly simple because you have a lot of time if you're doing this, at least in a medium tempo, and you can really think about what you're playing and listen to the note. So this is about really hearing what each note sounds like against the chord, to think ahead, and also voice leading. So really thinking about this note wants to go to this note in the next chord. That's gonna sound like a logical melody. And you're really practicing to hear that and get that into your system, how the notes are moving and how you can transition from one chord to the next in a logical way. A lot of really great exercises for improvisation are really about limiting yourself. And I'm of course also interested if you have other ideas for exercises with limitations that you work with that you think are really useful for learning how to improvise and play jazz. For this level, I needed to make some choices when it came to the dominant arpeggios, because I'm using altered dominants, so I don't have just a straight ahead dominant arpeggio on those dominants. And I'm using dominant 7 sharp 5 arpeggios to demonstrate this, but you can use other things as well. But this exercise is actually so important that I think you should be able to do this with any set of arpeggios that you come across. So you should try and do this also just with straight ahead dominant arpeggios. So try and play C major 7 to A7, to D minor 7 to G7. And in fact, this is a skill that you want to be able to apply to any chord progression that you come across. When you're working on this exercise, then you're really working on knowing the chords better, knowing what notes are in there, but also just knowing how to play them and knowing which ones really sound like the chord and which ones will work in this progression. So in that way, you're really internalizing both the progression, but also your ability to make clear lines with them. I think at the core of any exercise you do, it should be about taking some technical or theoretical things, putting that together, and then really working on making music with it. So I think it's really important that you not only just try to play the right notes, but you also really try to make some melodies that make sense and really explore what you're able to do and develop your ability to make melodies. And this is something that is so important and that you'll also see clearly come out in the next level. Improvising over this chord progression using only one string is something that's gonna give you a really strong overview of the scale. You really need to know what notes are there, where you can play them, how you can play them, and also you need to make some simpler melodies because you can't really sort of run up and down 2-octave arpeggios when you're playing only on one string. So it forces you to really think a little bit differently, and you have to think ahead because you have to think about what note you want to hit in the next chord and if you're moving in that direction, because it's probably only going to be reachable in one place on that string. Working on this is going to give you that overview of the scale, but it's also going to open up the way that you think about playing in positions. So it's going to help you start working towards playing more freely and being able to think about ending the melody that you're playing now in another position, and really in that way move freely around the neck, something that is really important and is really going to open up the melodic possibilities that you have when you're soloing. To really know a chord progression is of course also to be able to play it everywhere on the neck. It doesn't really work if you have an area where you can't really play A7 altered. So you need to make sure that you can actually play things everywhere, and you need to be practical about this as well. And practicing in all positions and just saying, okay, I'm gonna work on this right now and I'm only going to play in this area of the neck is really gonna help you with that, because maybe your favorite quartal arpeggio or open voice triad is not really in that area. So that means that you need to find some other things that you can use, some other devices that you can make melodies with that work in this place. So it's really quite practical to just explore how it is to improvise over a progression in just one area of the neck, and in that way just find the things that are playable that you can use and that you can make music with. This final level is really about taking all the other exercises and then combining them into one exercise, so doing all of them at once. I actually have a bonus exercise as well that I'm gonna cover in a bit, but I didn't include it in the 5 because I think it's a little bit less musical. It's a little bit more locked down in terms of how you are improvising and playing. But with this one, what we take is we start improvising over the chord progression, but then you force yourself to move around on the neck. So you force yourself to move up, or you force yourself to move down again, or maybe you just say, well, I'm gonna play this, but I'm gonna keep moving positions. And that way you always have to play the changes, you always have to play melodies that make sense, but you also always have to think about moving from one place to the next, and in that way really explore the fretboard. It's also a great exercise that's just naturally gonna reveal the places where you're kind of stuck, where you need to explore things more, or where you maybe don't have so many options, and that's gonna help you kind of iron that out and go there and find some stuff that works, explore that a bit, and then go on to the next progression. My bonus exercise is what I call the never-ending scale exercise. So this is more of a scale exercise than it is actually an improvisation exercise. And it's very difficult to play because what you're doing is that you're essentially just starting somewhere on the first chord and then playing the scale in eighth notes on that chord, and then once the chord changes, you need to change scale with it, and you need to have the overview to just continue the same direction in the next scale. Working like this is something that's really useful for just having an overview and thinking ahead, and really being aware of where you are in the scale, where you're gonna go, and how you're gonna keep on moving in that direction in the next scale. And it also, because it's kind of random what happens, it's again a good way of getting into the difficult corners of a position, or if you're doing this on the entire neck. I have a video on this that you can check out. There's a link to that in the description. With all the exercises that I'm covering in this video, they are about improvising, and you also need to judge how they sound. So if you want to know if you can really do these exercises, the best way to do that is actually to record yourself. So if you want to explore how you can use recording yourself as a way of teaching yourself, as a way of evaluating how you're progressing, then check out this video where I'm talking about different ways of doing that, what to pay attention to, and also what to think about and how to think about it so you don't get depressed or frustrated, but really use it, because it's a strong, powerful tool that can really help you develop quite a lot.